Welcome to this deep dive. May God deeply bless your day and your entire week as we start our journey together. Today, we are exploring Leviticus chapter 24 using insights from the Holman and Enzabele study Bibles.
Yeah, and it is a really wild chapter.
It really is. I mean, Leviticus can sometimes feel like this dense, ancient textbook to the modern reader, right?
Oh, absolutely, like a manual of just endless rules.
Exactly. But today's sources reveal a text that is actually incredibly dynamic. We are going to explore how a peaceful, ancient sanctuary routine gets suddenly interrupted by a violent camp brawl.
Right, a really messy situation.
Yeah, and that single moment actually leads to the creation of legal principles that still echo in our modern justice systems today.
It does, and what makes this chapter so fascinating is how it bridges the gap between grand spiritual symbols like eternal lights and sacred bread and the messy, gritty reality of human conflict. It shows how ancient case law was really born out of real-time crises.
Right. Before we dive into that dramatic conflict, though, we first have to understand the backdrop. We need to look at the quiet, constant daily routine of the tabernacle the whole community revolved around.
Yeah, the text highlights two massive elements here. First, the oil. They use this pure beaten olive oil for the seven-branched menorah, or candlestick.
Which was the highest quality oil, right?
Exactly, the absolute best. And Aaron had to keep it burning continuously from evening to morning, right outside the veil.
Okay, let's unpack this. It's basically like an ancient open 2-1-0-4-7 sign.
I love that analogy. Yeah, God's light is always on.
And the second element is the bread. They had to bake 12 loaves of fine flour representing the 12 tribes of Israel and place them in 2 rows of 6 on a pure gold table with frankincense.
And that was a lot of bread, by the way. Massive loaves.
Right. And they replaced it every single Sabbath. It then became a holy portion for Aaron and his sons to eat.
The NAA study notes point out something really interesting about this. Placing these daily, almost mundane rules right after chapter 23, which is all about massive annual festivals, it feels odd.
Oh, yeah. Almost like a reminder not to forget the daily grind after returning from a big holiday.
Precisely. The deeper meaning for you, the listener, is this was about constant presence and provision. The light symbolized God's continual presence, and the bread symbolized his constant provision for the tribes.
That is beautiful.
It is. And the Holman notes actually connect these ancient symbols directly to Jesus. He later identified himself as fulfilling both roles when he said he is the light of the world and the bread of life.
Oh, wow. That perfectly ties it all together. But, okay, we have this peaceful, always-on sacred routine, and then suddenly it's shattered by a very human, messy event.
Very messy.
Yeah, a fight breaks out in the camp. The son of an Israelite woman, Shelemith, from the tribe of Dan, and an Egyptian man gets into a fight with an Israelite.
Right, a physical brawl right there in the tents.
And during the fight, the son blasphemes and curses the name of the Lord, which stops everything.
Instantly.
They arrest him and place him in custody until God's will is declared. But wait, why did they put him in a holding cell? Didn't they already have basic rules against cursing God?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the NAA notes highlight this as a real-time example of ancient case law.
Wait, really? Case law.
Yeah, they hit two massive legal loopholes. First, the existing law against blasphemy didn't actually specify a penalty yet. They knew it was a crime, but what was the sentence?
Oh, I see. They had no precedent.
Exactly. And second, this man was a non-Israelite, a half-Egyptian. The judges just didn't know if the covenant laws applied to foreigners the same way, so they waited for a ruling.
And the verdict was intense. The community had to take him outside the camp, the witnesses laid their hands on his head, and the entire congregation stoned him.
Yeah, it was a severe, profound moment. In fact, the Holman notes reveal that this exact event caused later Jewish generations to completely stop saying the name Yahweh altogether out of sheer reverence and fear.
Wow, just completely substituting it with the name.
Exactly. And that detail about the laying on of hands by the witnesses, that wasn't just a physical gesture. It was a symbolic transfer of guilt.
Like pushing the sin onto the offender.
Right. So the broader community wouldn't be contaminated by the sin of hearing the blasphemy.
Man, that is so intense. But the resolution of this case establishes something huge. It shows that native citizens and foreigners are subject to the exact same law.
Which naturally prompts a broader legal code regarding fair punishment and retaliation.
Right. The text outlines rules for injury and death. Killing a person means death, but killing an animal requires restitution, life for life.
And that introduces the famous phrase, fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because an eye for an eye sounds incredibly barbaric to our modern ears. If you read this on the surface, it sounds like institutionalized revenge.
Oh, I totally get why people think that. But the study notes counter this modern assumption completely. This is the principle of lex talionis, or the law of retribution.
So it wasn't just a license to maim people.
Not at all. It wasn't a mandate for literal mutilation. In fact, it was very often applied as a financial fine or compensation for the value of the injured body part.
Wait, seriously? So they weren't just blinding people in court?
No, exactly. More importantly, it was an ancient limit on vengeance. It gave judges a framework to ensure a punishment never exceeded the crime.
Oh, so if someone knocks out my tooth, I can't go burn their house down.
Precisely. It prevented those endless escalating blood feuds that were so common in the ancient world. It capped the violence.
That is a massive shift in perspective. It was actually a human rights advancement.
It was. But, this was meant for the courts, not for daily interpersonal relationships. As the Holman notes point out, Jesus later elevated this standard even further in his teachings.
By telling people to turn the other cheek, right?
Exactly. He advocated for prioritizing forgiveness over any kind of personal retribution. He shifted it from demanding exact justice to offering grace.
That is such a powerful trajectory. Well, we've covered so much ground today. To summarize for you listening, we moved from the quiet, eternal symbols of light and bread right into a chaotic camp brawl that exposed a massive legal loophole.
Yeah, an unprecedented crisis.
And from that, we finally arrived at a foundational legal principle designed to cap human vengeance.
And I think a great thing to leave you with today is this thought. If lex talionis was a revolutionary step to limit vengeance in the ancient world, how do we, in our modern lives, balance our deep desire for proportional justice with the higher calling of forgiveness?
Oh, that is a profound question to chew on. Thank you for joining us on this journey. And remember, God blesses all the listeners. See you next time.